Brad Wall was one of the trio of Western premiers described as Harper's messengers, as you may recall, by Thomas Mulcair earlier this week. Brad Wall joined me earlier today to talk about it. Saskatchewan Premier Brad Wall, now that we've established that you're a mere messenger in all this, what's your message to Thomas Mulcair today?
That was an interesting comment from the NDP and from Mr. Mulcair yesterday. You know, I guess it was a week ago, Mr. Mulcair came out with a diagnosis for the economy. He said the economy had Dutch disease. Since then, we've heard a lot of second opinions. I think it's good to get a second opinion. We've heard it from StatsCan. They demonstrate that actually manufacturing is up. In fact, the largest increase since 2011 in manufacturing. Manufacturing is also up in Saskatchewan year over year. We've heard from the Conference Board, from any number of economists who've rendered their second opinion as well. And you know, he's just wrong. He's still wrong. I'm not sure if this is about politics for him or not, but he isn't backing down. It's like he's not interested in the end of any sentences. He's just not going to be back down from the position. And I can't fathom why, because I'm not sure how this works out in the long term politically and economically. We know his prescription would be bad for Canada, certainly bad for the West.
I'm curious because I was listening to him describe you as a messenger. I guess he was referring to all three westernmost premiers, and I kept thinking back to the potash dispute when you were a pretty contrarian messenger to Stephen Harper. I don't think you consider yourself a toady to the Prime Minister. Did you take that personally at all? Do you think he's trying to make this into a personal feud of some kind?
I was a bit surprised at his tone as well. He's an aspirant to 24 Sussex. He wants to be the Prime Minister. But in fact, Don, I am a messenger. I am a messenger on behalf of the people of the province. That's who pay my salary, and I'm a messenger on behalf of the economic interests of Saskatchewan as well. And anytime those are under attack, and that's what this is, especially considering he could be the Prime Minister one day and implement some of these ideas, we'll take the opportunity to stand up for the interests of the province. In this case, they're similar to interests in Western Canada, and those interests are Canadian interests because of the nature of economic growth that the West is helping to bring to the country.
There was an awful lot of screeching in the House of Commons today, and maybe it's just their spring fever and they want to get out of the place, but there were enough signs of Western pride being heard up by all this from Western premiers. What's the sense from people of Saskatchewan? Are they taking this personally? Do they find it repugnant, or are they sort of shrugging their shoulders and saying, well, that's the NDP in Ottawa?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, even provincially, our NDP have not backed away from Mr. Mulcair. They've basically sided with him with some silence and with a difficult scrum that the leader of the NDP here had yesterday. So I think people in the West wonder about whether or not the NDP are really interested in the kind of growth that comes from natural resource development in the short, in the mid, and the long term. There's some, I think, justification to concerns when you take a look at the political history of Western Canada. So I'm not sure they're all that surprised. I do, though, think that they don't appreciate when there's someone who's going to potentially be the Prime Minister someday, he's applying for the job, when that individual would be so cavalier about what the West is contributing to the country. Especially when we know manufacturing jobs are actually being created in places like Ontario and Quebec and right across the country as a result of potash and oil and the resources that we're lucky to have in Canada.
I was curious because everyone knows you're a diehard Federalist without any doubt about that. Do you worry this drives a bit of a wedge between East and West, manufacturing versus resource extraction? Is there a danger here of something more substantive happening?
Maybe, and I think that's why it's important for us as premiers, and I appreciate economists that have come forward and federal elected people as well to come forward and challenge this Dutch disease diagnosis, which is wrong, and again, it's quite divisive. It is a chance for some dialogue. It's a chance to highlight what the Western resource sector means, not just to Saskatchewan and Alberta and British Columbia and other places, but really to the whole country. And so in the end, if we can have that dialogue and a better understanding of the aspirations of all regions of the country, it's not a bad thing necessarily, but it means we have to go through this debate we're having right now.
I had noted that the NDP is having a sort of traveling caucus meeting in St. John's in early June. I'm thinking maybe you should invite the NDP caucus to come to Saskatchewan and have a look at the resource industry up close.
We'd show them the potash mines. We'd show them the Bakken field, which is one of the largest conventional plays in the world. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the largest in North America, shared with some U.S. states and a bit into Manitoba, although we try to, horizontal drill that out of there and into Saskatchewan. Still, we take them to those places, and I think then we could take them to some manufacturing facilities in our province that are prospering, notwithstanding the challenges of a high exchange. And the exchange rate does impact on our exports, all of them. There's no question about it. But we could demonstrate, I think, that all sectors of the economy can grow in an environment when the fundamentals are right, and it might be an interesting visit. We'd welcome that.
Okay, here's a zinger question for you. Ottawa, they had a new sex education exhibit open here, and it got a lot of press. The Heritage Minister thinks it shouldn't have been allowed in a museum here. But I know that they had it in Regina before it came here, and not one complaint was registered about it. I wonder what you think that says about the people of Regina and what it says about the people of Ottawa.
I was not aware that it was here earlier, and I really have. I've heard a little bit about it, but haven't seen the exhibit, so I can't comment on that, and I can't comment actually on the speculation as to why it wasn't raised here. It could be that anytime we get into a new year and closer to spring, obviously there's the hockey playoffs, and there's a lot of talk already about the Riders, Don. Their camp opens up in June, so. Maybe that's what people are talking about. I couldn't explain why it hasn't come up here, though.
You're saying they're more interested in sports. You're saying they're more interested in sports than sex. Well, good for you. All right, Premier Bradwell. You can answer to the voters for that one, Premier Bradwell. Thanks very much. We appreciate you joining us.
Well, yeah, thanks for that, Don. That's very much appreciated.